Okay, Thanksgiving is over. 9.2 PTR should come live. I'm gonna bet before Thursday we should see it.
Well, you know, we can kind of argue whether or not before Thursday is gonna be technically correct, because today is Thursday and the PTR is going to go live. So the announcement from Blizzard came a few hours ago. They had some apparently technical difficulties, so the actual release of the PTR has been delayed to this afternoon in EU, and I guess this morning in NA. But even though we can't already jump in and test them and check out a few of the additions, we can already see some of the changes that Blizzard has planned for the PTR, some of the things that were already announced and shown to everyone, like for example the tier sets that are going to be coming out. They have already been changed. We haven't even gotten to test them yet, and apparently, miraculously, the feedback from the players was enough for Blizzard to plan some changes ahead, if not straight up already change a few of them. So while this is very positive to hear that they are going to essentially act on the player feedback that they have received, of course, first of all, we're gonna have to wait what the end product of these changes is going to be. But for the time being, we can go and mention which of the tier sets are being looked over by Blizzard for these changes. One is the Monk set, the Brewmaster Monk set particularly. So we did point out when we went over and looked at our tier sets that the Brewmaster was basically towards the bottom. It didn't look that enticing or that revolutionary for the spec, both of them, both the 2-piece and the 4-piece. The 4-piece ended up even being a downright DPS loss if you were playing with the Charred Passions legendary. So in this announcement, one of many for when they announced the PTR being released, they are pointing out that the Brewmaster 4-piece will be redesigned in a future build. We have heard your feedback that you would prefer a more focused bonus and will be acting on that desire. So that's the first change we're going to be seeing for the Brewmaster tank set. If we are looking at the tank set pieces, this is the one that needed the most work. Protection Paladin, Vengeance Demon Hunter, even something like Blood Death Knight, if it works like it should, they all look very powerful. So does the Guardian Druid one, very exciting possible power for Guardian. So the only one that was left to be a little bit boring is Brewmaster, and it's gonna be changed. So this is good. What about healers? Well, at the moment, we have pointed out how the Holy Paladin set looks amazing, to the point that it basically looks expected for that tier set to be nerfed. Then we have Holy and Discipline, which are actually kind of disappointing and could do with some changes. Restoration Druid seemed very mismatched because Swiftmend is not used at all in raids and it is only decent at best in Mythic Plus, so that could do with a change. And so does the Resto Shaman one, which was focusing a spell that Shamans really don't want to use that often. So the changes for the tier sets for healers are going to be one for Restoration Druid. The announcement, the very brief announcement from the Blizzard devs, is that both the 2-piece and the 4-piece bonuses for Restoration will be changed for a future build. Thank you for your feedback, and we will continue to watch the ongoing conversations. So again, very good that this is going to be changed for Druids. They didn't really want to have too much synergy with their Swiftmen anyways. If they even wanted to, they already had one of their legendaries, Verdant Infusion, they could have used for it. So that's a good change for Restoration Druid. The other change for healers, for the moment, is going to be to Restoration Shaman. In the announcement, they point out that they are planning to take the Restoration bonus back into the workshop and change it up for a future build. We wanted to encourage you to chain heal sometimes and be rewarded for doing so. But the current 2-piece set bonus is a little bit more passive than we think it could be. Many people have expressed dislike for the 4-piece set bonus, so we are going to change that up more substantially. Of course, the main issue with people with the 4-piece set bonus is that Spirit Link is primarily very important in raids, because you're going to be given a list of cooldowns that you have to use at a specific time to match a specific boss ability, and you need to do it in sync with all of the other cooldowns from all of the other healers. So you can't just randomly decide to use your Spirit Link 30 seconds before you're assigned to, or 1 minute before you're assigned to, because your tier set just reduced the cooldown of Spirit Link. You have to be much more certain of when you're going to use it. So it looked a little bit sketchy. The 2-piece set bonus, I'm a little bit confused on what it being a little bit more passive than we think it could be means perhaps it's just going to turn into a empowered chain heal every once in a while. Something towards the line of every time you cast Riptide, you make your next chain heal bounce to one additional target and heal for 10% more, stacks up to 5 times. And there you have it. Now this means you're going to be casting one chain heal every 5 Riptides, which is much more manageable, much more reasonable for a Resto Shaman to do. Now, as we pointed out, I am still hoping that Discipline Priest in particular and Holy Priest are going to receive a few more changes when it comes to tier sets and to healers, but there is plenty of time. We have seen now that Blizzard is willing to go for changes to these tier sets even before the PTR is out for testing, so there is no reason to believe that in the next 2-something months that the PTR is going to be live, we aren't going to get any more changes. So it's very positive. For now, outside of the tanks and the healers, we only have a couple of changes for the DPS so far. One is to Shadow Priest. So the announcement itself states that the shadow bonuses are going to receive some changes based on the feedback. The 2-piece set bonus is going to shift its focus on Devouring Plague. As we go deeper into the tiers and more item levels come in, Shadow Priest is going to start swimming in insanity, so focusing your kit, your set bonus on your spender makes sense, while the 4-piece will remain largely unchanged. The only difference is that your shadow generated by this 4-piece is going to swap their current single target channel for one that favors AoE situations as well. This was the other problem for the set bonuses of Priest, that it pretty much offered 0 changes to your power in AoE situations, so this one is likely going to even out the disparity a little bit. The other and currently last change that we can see, and this is something that was very obvious, pointed out by anyone who looked at this tier set, which was the Feral Druid 4-piece set bonus, used to read that when Berserk ends, you were going to lacerate all enemies doing massive 700% attack power, bleed damage over 10 seconds. This was pointed out to be nonsensical, because you want to use Berserk as you start your Mythic Plus pull, when all of the enemies are alive and you can push all of your damage. If you generate this massive bleed after 20 seconds once Berserk ends, or 30 seconds once Incarnation ends, the Mythic Plus pack is already dead. Who are you lacerating with this huge AoE bleed if it's used 20 seconds after you have used your big CD? You wanted to use it while your cooldowns are active, not at the end of it. So Blizzard took action quite quickly related to this. So now the 4-piece set bonus is going to read, entering Berserk causes you to lacerate all nearby enemies for 700% of attack power as a 10-second bleed. Now this is exactly what you would want. You want the big burst of damage. In this case, it's not exactly burst because it's a bleed, but you know, it's feral, that's what you get. But at the very least now, it is at the start of your cooldowns, not at the end. So it's much more sensible for Feral Druids to use. No real point in going over the other tier sets of other specs and classes to see which are the weak ones, which could be changed further, because I'm pretty sure that eventually, some less, some more substantially, but eventually we're going to see changes to most of the tier sets. So for now, these are the ones that have gotten touched right before PTR even comes out officially. Now, are there any other changes? Well, one of the changes is for catch-up mechanisms and crafting. Once PTR comes out, you're going to be able to get the Crafter's Mark 4, which is going to craft you item level 233 pieces. Now, the relevant part about this is that the previous catch-up mechanism that you used to have, the Crafter's Mark 3, was 200 item level. So the only thing worth of note with this catch-up system is that you're not going to be half a tier higher in item level, because the Crafter's Mark item level 200 was equivalent to normal Castelnatria raid. Now the normal Sanctum of Domination raid is 226 item level, while this catch-up item, craftable item, is going to be 233, so the equivalent of Kel'Thuzad and Sylvanas normal item level. 7 item levels higher than the average normal item level gear piece. So slightly higher catch-up gear available for you, even if you go down to Cortia. The base armaments that you could find in Cortia were 200 item level at the start. So at the very least, we can see that in 9.2, the default start of your catch-up gear is going to be slightly higher. There is also going to be a new addition with this sort of catch-up gear, a special, unique piece. And yes, it's going to be another legendary, and no, it's not going to have anything to do with your current legendaries that you're going to be using. They're going to be separate, so you're going to be able to use both the two legendaries and this item. This is going to work just like pieces from, for example, BFA used to work. This item is going to be crafted with the unique equipped Shadowlands crafted modifier, so you can only equip one of these, and it's going to be at item level 262. So just like the current maximum item level in the game and the item level of your max level legendary. 262 is currently 10 item levels higher than the default mythic raid version. So in 9.2, item level 262 is going to be halfway through heroic item level. It's basically going to be slightly higher than normal raid item level and closer to the heroic raid item level. This could still be usable, actually, as you are trying to get some gear, as you're trying to quickly gear up through Mythic Plus, through the first normal and heroic versions of the raid, being able to target one of your slots, perhaps in one of the slots where you have been particularly unlucky, you will be able to just fill that slot with this 262 unique crafted piece of gear. The reagents for the crafting seem to be very cheap as far as the current available reagents in game. The only addition is going to be this thing right here, the Progenitor Essentia, which is going to be one of the materials available for you in Zereth Mortis. So besides that piece, everything else is going to be quite cheap, and also this piece itself for the moment is not soulbound, it's not bind on pickup, so it can be put on the auction house, very similar to the Korthite Crystal legendary reagent, the material you can find in Kortia, which is auctionable as well. The special thing, the reason why you might want to use this 262 piece of gear for a little bit longer than you might want is perhaps because of the new optional reagents that you can put in your crafted gear. These optional reagents are going to be added to the base Shadowlands crafted gear, and these items are going to gain a fourth optional reagent slot when you're crafting them in 9.2. Now, it's not too sure if it's going to work with this 262 item level item itself, but there are some cool, perhaps interesting effects that might become useful. Most of these are intended to have some nice quality of life additions to your Zereth Mortis grind, so to speak, like increasing movement speed and mount speed in the open world, like chance to acquire additional resources from corpses, or increasing the duration of your foods, flasks and potions, and a series of other things. It's going to be interesting, as I said, if these are going to work with your 262 item level crafted piece. There might be some pretty OP optional reagents that you could stick to this item, maybe end up creating something similar to the Cyclotronic Blast reagent added to your Mechagon trinket, which turned out to be very strong, even when the item level was far behind what you could get in BFA, but we'll have to see. For now, we don't really know how good these enchants are. There are then, for last, a few other things that have been announced for the PTR that we can't see quite yet, of course. One is the chapters of the story, of course. On the PTR, the first 3 chapters are going to be available, basically by today. There's also going to be an unannounced, never before seen new mode in Torghast. We pointed out that with Blizzard shifting away pretty much every possible power away from Torghast, because now you're not going to be needing to go in Torghast anymore to get your Soul Cinders and your Soul Ash for your legendaries, it's very likely that you're not going to get any type of socket upgrades if you manage to make it in the Adamant Vaults either, so you lose a lot of reasons to go into Torghast. In 9.2, we got a stealth edition of a new Torghast game mode called the Jailer's Gauntlet, run through a series of increasingly challenging boss battles across 8 floors per layer and 8 layers total to earn unique rewards. And then, of course, the new challenging layers to the normal Torghast, from layer 12 of today's patch to layer 13 through 16 of 9.2. A few other cool things for players to try out, like, for example, people who never bother to use these in the form of add-ons. We are going to see the click casting and the unit frame mouse over casting being introduced in the actual settings of the game. In the options and then into combat, you will be able to find these features, being able to cast spells by simply clicking on a unit frame and then being able to mouse over a unit frame and cast a spell on that character without the need to target them. These are quite standard, I'm sure, to many players who have been using add-ons like Click or Voodoo and other type of cast managing add-ons, but it is always good to see that they become official in-game, available for everyone. Lastly, what we are going to be finishing the video with, as far as announcements for 9.2 go, is the raid testing. Because on Friday we are going to get our first of the raid testing for 9.2. I've already seen some cynicism on this, people pointing out that because Endwalker, Final Fantasy's expansion, is releasing, that this was basically planned by Blizzard before time. I just want to point out two things. Number one, for those who never bothered to be in, the raid testing on the PTR has historically generally started on a Friday and also at those times. So as far as the routine schedule of raid testing goes, that's just par for the course. Secondly, this is literally a 2-hour session. How can someone possibly believe that Blizzard's plan to contend with an entire expansion is a couple of hours of raid testing on a PTR server? This just reeks of people wanting to be negative or just contrarians for the sake of being edgy and nothing else. If anything, if you really wanted to go there, you could have said that the Legion Time Walking and the Mage Tower Challenge that are going to be live in like 4 days have been delayed by a full month to match the release of Final Fantasy's expansion. Certainly not the 2 hours of PTR testing for a handful of bosses. So that's all for today. As far as the 9.2 news are concerned, we are of course going to get way more as we get into the PTR right now or in a few hours, depending when it's actually going to go up live. Maybe it already is. But for now, as we wait for any more news, we can stop here. As usual, thank you guys for watching the video. If you want to start or continue supporting the channel, you can leave a like on the video, you can comment down below as well, and don't forget that you can also subscribe to the channel. But today the subscription is going to be limited to left-handed people. No discrimination at all. I am left-handed myself, so if anything, it's just for some solidarity between lefties. Now, see you guys soon, and in the meantime, so the average time on the PTR for the patches of the past 6 years put the release of 9.2 on February the 15th.